all weekend that I announced last week. I'm excited to bring it to you. This interview is sponsored by Jade Healing Co. Go check them out. I got some of their rub on my neck and on my arthritic hands right now to make sure I can bring in this next guest. Also took some drops to help keep the neck and the headaches under control so we can have a lovely conversation with Lisa Barry from Supernatural. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Elena Huffman, for introducing us so we could have you on the show today. You were doing a takeover of her Instagram the other day. That was really cool to watch.
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, we're birds of a feather. You know, she's into the spiritual stuff, so am I. So it was such a beautiful pairing. I was like, thanks for sharing your cyberspace sanctuary. It's great.
Yeah, which is another reason I'm all about, you know, my personal life motto is positivity breeds positivity. You know, the more you think positive, say and do positive actions, the more you're inviting positive things into your life. You know, so I was excited to have you on, not just because you play pretty much death as Billie on Supernatural, which your character is so super cool, but because of your spirituality. And I wanted to talk to you about your new little podcast you got going on for meditation that I was checking out the other day.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So let's talk about your podcast first, and then we'll make the fans stick around for the Supernatural talk. So what gave you the idea to start the podcast, and when did you start it? Is it audio form only?
It is audio form only, and I had to put it down to rest when I got pregnant because I got really, really sick and needed to just kind of take a break from everything.
Yeah, and congratulations on your pregnancy, and you and your husband must be really happy.
Oh, we're so excited. Like just over the moon, jumping on tabletops, dancing, kind of excited. It's wild, and we're just really excited for the journey. I'm just like, I can't wait to meet the little guys. So,
excellent. And when did you say?
End of July.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's
so
way coming up.
We're coming up.
Wow. Okay, so you're in that rare COVID pregnancy birth. So this is kind of new in the landscape of the healthcare anyway because of everything going on out there. So what are you doing for your mindset to keep your stress levels low and to stay positive for that?
You know, at the beginning of COVID, I wasn't on social media. I was still taking a break because I needed to just really be by myself and take a season to rest and recharge emotionally and physically, get my bearings in my new body. And then when I came out, I was so surprised to see how many people had been experiencing so much anxiety, because I felt like I was really cocooned in a sanctuary of love, because when I got pregnant, I decided before anything else that, you know, I wanted my son to meet the best version of me. So it didn't matter what was happening in the world.
Right.
I was like, you're going to meet the best version of me, period. So I really set the intention, and then was really just inviting a lot of loving energy into my space, into my heart, into my head. And then I would really affirm that every day. And we would do breathing exercises every day, and which is my thing. And so I made a promise that, you know, now is not the time to cut and run on our spiritual practice, just because we're living in uncertain times, you know, and, you know, talking with people, I really experienced a deepening of my spiritual practice, because I was someone who's always believed you never had control over circumstances, you know, and practice being present, because that's what I had control over.
That's the only thing you have control over. Yeah, you can't control other people. No.
You know, or things or circumstances. So I was really aware when COVID hit that I was kind of like, now is not the time to cut and run on the spiritual practice. Now is when I need to dig even deeper. And just like, you know, COVID came in and, you know, a whirlwind of like, what's going on? All it really did was highlight what was needed, where we were struggling, what still needed to be healed, and to really go to work on that. So, people are just like, well, nothing's really changed. It's just highlighted the injustices in our system. It's just highlighted,
Right.
the lack of spirituality in the community because we lost touch with that.
And
so,
lack of self-awareness.
Yeah. So it's like people are having to be Heimlicked into some of the most intense spiritual practices of being present, taking it one day at a time, which are simple slogans, but really filled with so much. And so people are kind of like, I don't know how to be present.
Well, and it's what I say all the time is that's why they call it practicing, is because it takes a lot of work, and like I have to practice patience.
Yeah. It's no different than learning to play a song on the piano. If you practice every day, you're bound to get better. Even if you're making the smallest amount of progress, you're still making progress. Versus if you just never get up and practice it at all. So
I never officially learned to play my piano. You got me feeling really guilty right now. But I feel better because I actually just gifted it for a birthday to my nephew. So and he loves it. So I think he's actually going to be a really good piano player. So
it's where it's meant to be.
Right. Exactly. Because that's also part of accepting, yourself is realizing your own limits. And though I've always loved to be a singer and songwriter, I'm not the greatest musician, and I'm aware of that.
Mm-hmm. And, because you were talking about having, arthritis and aches and pains in the body. I'm not sure what the extent of the...
Take too long to explain.
I'm not sure of the extent of what's going on with you. But a lot of what I do, what I teach, is going into the body and learning to have a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that you're in dialogue, rather than feeling like there's nothing you can do. And
I love meditation, and I love being self-aware, and that's something I talk about all the time too, is like, look, doctors are Sherlock Holmes trying to check the different boxes and to figure out what's wrong with you, but you're the one who ultimately knows what's going on inside of you and with your body. Right. And you got to be self-aware of everything going on with your body, otherwise you can't get to the actual problems.
You're the expert.
Yeah, exactly. You're the expert. Right. Quit trying to shove pills down my throat and figure out if any of this is fixable.
And it's something that, I appreciate Western medicine. I really, really do. I think it's got its place and its purpose.
But Eastern is preventative and health maintenance. I also went to massage school. So that was one of the first things I learned, is the difference between Western medicine and Eastern medicine and how they look at health as a whole. Because look, here's what drives me nuts. Real quick soapbox about Western medicine here in this society. Like, I got issues with my neck and my lower back, but my pain specialist won't even do anything about my lower back because they don't look at my body as a whole until they can fix my neck, but they can't fix my neck. So why not try that still at the same time? It's like, it's mind boggling to me.
No, it's so real. But that's just because I bring that up just because on my podcast that the meditations that I do are all in alignment with connecting with the body and asking it questions and asking it to tell you how it wants to feel and what it needs in order to feel a certain way. One of my favorite meditations that I do is a self-love meditation, which is, getting the body nice and still to encourage the mind to be quiet, and then allowing yourself to connect with that internal space that I like to call our sanctuary, and asking the question, what does it feel like to love yourself from the inside out? And if there are areas where you feel blocked, or like there's tension, or like there's tightness, to crawl into those spaces with the breath and to fill it out more so that you can start getting release and rest in those areas. Because a lot of times we're holding on to tension, and sometimes we don't even know. Right. And we get caught up in, just even surfing on social media, where all of a sudden you're feeling a wave of emotions that you don't even realize you're feeling because you're just going from one post to the next. And, I was just talking about this with a friend of mine, where you go from seeing genocide in a country to your friend having a baby to a wedding to
It's
Black
a
Lives
roast
Matter to, you
to
know what I mean?
to friends canceling
somebody
a wedding
getting,
because of COVID. I mean, yeah, it's all
you
over the
know,
place.
to more COVID news. And that's all in the span of like 10 posts that happen in a span of 10 seconds. And so you feel a whole bunch of different things and you have no idea that you're on an emotional roller coaster ride.
Because we're more
On that
connected
ride.
than ever before in good and bad ways.
Exactly. And that ride is making you feel a whole bunch of different things. And when you're not connected to it, next thing you know, you're sitting there like this and you're just like, what are you talking about? I'm fine. And then someone tells you, relax your shoulders. You're like, oh my goodness, I did not realize I had that much tension, you know, until you hear somebody say, take a breath. And you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize it was.
Well, and that's,
I wasn't even
and like
breathing.
you said, relax the shoulders. And that's the one thing, you know, people are like, what do we all have in common? We all bleed red. No. What we all have in common is we all have the same pressure points and trigger points throughout the entire body, muscle and skeletal system. And we all hold our tension in our shoulders and in the same spots of the body. That's universal as a human. Like that's, and what you said about taking a breath is super important, because that's why yoga works so well, is because when you fill your lungs to max capacity, because we don't do that often as humans, just like we only use 10% of our brain, we don't really fully use our lungs all the time either. You're literally pushing on your organs and expanding and stretching out your muscles from the inside in ways you normal stretching doesn't do. And that's why the breathing technique of yoga is so great. Like, so I used to help run a convention in Ventura, and one of our special guests was Terry Hiroyuki Tagawa, and love that man. But like, he got into martial arts just to learn all the healing properties, and got out of martial arts because they weren't teaching him the healing properties. So he invented this breathing stretching exercise done in chairs, and like, he spent an hour and a half teaching that to me and working on me after I picked him up from the train station and brought him to his hotel room. And just that alone was like better than any yoga I'd ever done. And so the importance of taking a moment. So when people are telling you to take a breath, it's not just telling you, hey, calm down, in an offensive way. It's a good thing.
But just even someone telling you to calm down can make you stressed.
Oh, yeah. You know? Words matter. Words matter.
So it's a challenge, no matter what. And I think you've hit on something really great when it comes to yoga. You know, I've been expressing this a lot lately, where a lot of people think yoga is the movements, and I was like, yoga is the meditation, and it's just connected to the exercises and the postures. And so somebody can be
Lisa Barrett preaching
at, you know, downward dog and be super flexible, but it's are you flexible in your mind? It's not just about, are you flexible in your body? Are you flexible in your breath? Are you flexible within the way that you think? It's a whole system of experiencing yourself, rather than just, oh, I've done yoga and I can do every posture like to the fullest extent and I'm really, really good at it. And you're just like, and how flexible are you in life?
Well, then how are you treating the Starbucks employee with your Frappuccino afterwards? That's really the intention of yoga and your focus and being present.
When you fall out of a posture, how do you treat yourself? Do you treat yourself, oh, how could I do that? What's wrong? Or do you see the beauty and the imperfection of, there's still more to learn. There's still areas where you can improve. So it's always looking for the growth, always looking for the growth. And that, you know, it's just like when I talk about intention versus goals with people, you know, have become interchangeable, and they're really not. You know, like, a goal is very different than an intention. And just to offer something to your listeners right now, because it's something that I've become really passionate about, at least expressing, so that people have access to this, which is, when you set a goal, it is something that you do. So I want to read more books, you know, in the year. I want to exercise 3 times a week. I want to, and these all have things with a goal in mind that happens in the future, versus an intention, which is something that you are. It's a way of being. And what a lot of times I experience with people that I talk to and people that I help and teach, you fall into the trap of, I'm not manifesting what I want. I'm manifesting more misery.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
yep.
how do I start manifesting the things that I actually want? And they're like, I'm asking, I believe I'm believing, and I'm just not getting that receiving end of it. And so I have a system that I like to call the Trinity of Trust.
Mm-hmm. Talk about that.
And it is a way of breaking down a resistance, first off, which is really identifying the difference between an intention and the difference between a goal, so that you can really help yourself out, because a goal is outside of yourself and intention is inside yourself. So once we've established that, then we move into the actual Trinity part of it all, which is setting an intention, which is the ask. But when you say ask, it feels again like it's outside of yourself. But when you set an intention, it's allowing yourself to acknowledge that there's a force greater than yourself at play.
You're asking the universe inside yourself.
You're asking the universe inside yourself to really go to work, spirit guides, angels,
Yeah.
The people that are directly connected to you and know your goals, your dreams, your heart's desires so specifically that you haven't even said them out loud, but they know them.
Right.
And,
I always tell people when they ask me, because I get hit up by complete strangers for the weirdest advice, but I tell people, like, look, the universe wants you to be happy.
Exactly. And that's actually one of my mantras is I'm like, God wants me happy, actually. So it helps me really stop doing things that don't serve me, because
I say, hey, look, I mean
sense.
God. I mean God. I just say universe because it's easier for people to take palatable across all boards.
Full disclaimer, I use God, source, universe. Sometimes I even use energy field. So it is, it's all interchangeable, and it's whatever feels right to you.
Yeah.
But the first thing
if you're not putting out a good vibe, you're not listening to your own Holy Ghost.
Exactly. So the first thing that I do is I teach people how to break down the resistance, which is allowing yourself to invite the energy of the universe into your life. So you set an intention, which can be something as simple as, I want to forgive myself. You know what I mean? But keeping it in a want allows it to be outside of yourself yet again, and makes it feel like it's something you need to do, and then it feels like a goal.
Right.
Versus saying, my intention is to forgive myself. Even in the saying of it, or even the hearing of it, it feels different.
Well, it's important to say it out loud. To actually, the brain processes things differently when you hear it. So it is important to say it out loud to yourself.
Yeah, because you get the energetic field of what you're talking about. And so I ask a lot of people, is like, do you feel the difference when I say I want to forgive myself versus my intention is to forgive myself?
Right.
And
want still leaves doubt.
Like, it's so slight. You're like, still, that
Words
slight
matter.
difference really helps break the resistance down. Like, oil getting grease off of a pan, or soap getting grease off of a pan, kind of thing. Like, it really helps to disperse it. And then the next step that I ask people to do is to invite that intention's energy in, because that's the next big step of it all, which
acceptance.
Even more than acceptance. If you sent away for a package and it showed up at your door and you don't open it, you don't receive it, then you're basically saying return to sender.
Right, Schroeder's cat.
And it's not gonna get to you. So you got to open the door, and then you got to invite, the mailman in, and I mean that in a clean way.
Right.
And then you got to receive it, right? But then there's also one more step that really helps solidify it, and this is why I call it a trinity, which is you've got to connect to your heart. When we connect to the beating of our heart, we are connecting to the strongest energy field in our body. And when we connect to the strongest energy field in our body, we really do become a magnet. So then it turns into, my intention is to forgive myself. And I invite forgiveness into my life. And then you put your hands on your heart and you really connect with the beating of each rhythm of your heart. And you say, I affirm, I am worthy of feeling forgiven. And something happens. You begin to really believe it. And you start to walk with that. And that is such not only a game changer,
power,
but a lifesaver. Because it really is connecting to a deeper power. And so you really have the power that comes when you encircle yourself with the intention and the invitation and then the worthiness of it all really becomes a whole thing. So I just wanted to be able to give that to your listeners and anybody who watches this in the future.
Yeah. So
as
where can
something-
they subscribe to all of that information and get, because you're going to have more future stuff coming up. So where can they find your podcast? Where can they, because I followed your link and it goes all over the place. So you got multiple stuff coming to the people. So where can they get all that?
As on my Instagram, because that's pretty much the only social media that I use. So it's like on my Instagram, you can follow a link to either subscribe to my newsletter or to listen to one of my meditations. And there will be more meditations coming up. I've already recorded a couple just for, COVID times where it's kind of like, okay, what do I do? How do I feel secure? So on my Instagram, you have a link where you can subscribe, and I have a course that I'm going to be launching really soon about learning how to connect with your body through your breath and how to actually start a dialogue and move all the way from your beliefs into expanding into who you know you can be on the fullest level. And so I'm really excited about that. And but I really want people to have just something they can use immediately. And I know that intention setting is complicated for people, but 20 years in this business, I'll tell you, learning how to set proper intentions that actually work.
Right.
Game changer.
Right. Well, well, then, speaking of game changers, and you brought it up, let's talk about the industry. There were no black nominees just a few years ago in the Oscars. You're also a woman of color, so that you got all kinds of different things, and and we got Black Lives Matter in the forefront of all news, as it should be right now. And for anyone who comments all lives matter, they immediately get blocked on all my social media because you just don't get it. But yeah, so let's talk about that, setting your intentions and okay, so what was it like getting a job? Let's start with Supernatural. You're just coming off that gig. How fun was that? Because that's a real tight knit family as far as production goes. Filmed in Ontario, I believe.
Vancouver.
That's right. I always get those two cities backwards. Filmed in Vancouver, and it's a real tight knit group, and they have their own conventions now. How much fun was that to be? And did you get any backlash when they announced you were taking over as Death?
I think there was a little bit of backlash. I think people were like, "What?" But for the most part, like an overwhelming most part, a lot of people were really excited to see my character get that kind of promotion and to really step into a new era for the show. And you see that with characters like Rowena getting to be the Queen of Hell, and you just see, a new infrastructure starting to emerge within the show, which is really beautiful. And they have been really gracious in how they've brought my character back several times, because I was only supposed to do one episode.
Oh, okay.
And as a walk-on guest star, it's on a show like that. It's hard to even get 2 episodes. And now I've done over a dozen episodes, and I feel really blessed because I think the Supernatural family is a really loving group of people, and they have been very, very welcoming, and they have helped just shape me in ways that I'm so grateful for, because especially with the singing part of my life, I've never really considered myself a singer, and they've been so encouraging in that arena for me, and they have really helped heal parts of myself that I truly thought would be broken forever because of their love and their encouragement and their support. So that has been, a wonderful facet of being on the show. And then the other really great facet is the friendships that you make, which is really cool because of the conventions, and you get to hang out with people who you might not even do a scene with. You might not get to actually work with them, but because of the conventions, I've gotten to connect with my old friend Brianna, who we knew when she lived back in Toronto, and get to meet Kim and Elena and Ruth and Rachel. Like, there are just so many people who have become very dear friends of mine, all because of a show. A show, you know.
The show. There's a reason
that
that hashtag SPN family,
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just for the fans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel lucky because of all the franchises, all the fandoms you could possibly walk into. They have been very, very, very welcoming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's something I talk about a lot because I've done so many conventions and done a lot of interviews at conventions as well. And this is something a lot of nerds don't get while they're at conventions, is that that's just fun secondary money for you guys. Your first job is an actor. You're literally are doing it mostly for the fans. And that's why, like, you know, I've handled contracts, and that's why in the contracts, it's one of the first things in the contract is if you get any acting gig that interferes with Comic Con, that Comic Con is canceled because you're an actor first.
Mm-hmm. And it really is for the fans. Well, it's a bonus to you know, monetarily make money with it as well. You know, we leave our families, you know,
right.
And for people who do it a lot, you know, it's a toll to travel so much. And the one thing that I will say makes it worth it are the people who show up to meet you, because then it becomes worth it, you know, because I'm not somebody who believes money is enough of a reason to do anything.
Right. Right.
It's a lovely bonus. Nobody's mad at it. But truly, like, I really do it to meet people who have traveled far, and some people have traveled really far. You know, where I was like, you came from where? You know? And so I'm always excited to meet anybody who is supporting me on my journey. And I'm always trying to, in some way or another, really just go above and beyond what is expected, because I'm a human being first, and I'm also a nerd, and I fan out when I meet people who I've admired for a really long time. And, you know, I've geeked out on set and, you know, asked for my autographs and my pictures.
Well, and that's one of the things I was going to ask you. Like, as becoming the next Death, you stepped into the shoes of a legend who was playing Death before you. So was there any kind of pressure there?
Of course. And I love the way he played Death. Like, I think he's a phenomenal actor. So getting to step into his shoes and pick up his scythe was just an honor, for one. But I definitely knew I was in character when I wasn't like a giggly schoolgirl. You know what I mean? Because I would be like, oh my God, that's Jensen's jerk. Oh my God, that's so great. Oh my God, I can't believe you're right there. And then it's like, all right, let's do this.
Okay. Game face. Time to work.
Game face. Yeah. And that's when I knew. I was like, okay, we're in character now. Because now there are people who irritate me. I was like, to have that distinction makes it easier to play a character for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you know what? If there's a lot of people on set, you're not going to get along with everyone. That is for sure. Mm-hmm. Because the set.
But we really do. Like, a lot of, like, I mean, one of my favorite parts about working on that set is the crew.
Okay.
They're very kind. You know, that was one of the biggest appeals. I mean, I could stay in my trailer all day. I'm not that actor, though. And not that there's anything wrong with staying in your trailer all day, but I'm really the type of person who's just like, I can only remember things by experiencing them. You know, so I just remember even my first episode, I just was like, if it's okay that I stay on set, I'm going to stay on set, you know, because I want to remember this, and so I want to make memories. Right.
Well, it's a good way to learn other crafts beyond acting. So, I mean, do you do any writing? Or are you looking into producing and directing and all of that? Because as a Black entertainer, you know, and some of my other friends that are Black entertainers, they're big on, you know, the writing aspect and the producing aspect, because, you know, like my friend Damien always says, I got to create the part I want.
Yeah. You know, I feel really lucky that I've been given a lot of parts that I'm just like, ooh, that's really nice. Thank you. And at the same time, there's still a whole other side to me that I'm just like, oh, this would be so much more fun if I could just, you know, add this little quality, or let this side of me show, or do more comedy, you know, because I play a lot of really serious characters, a lot of, you know, gloom and gloom
But
kind of characters.
comedy belongs in darkness. That's our
Yeah.
life. We use comedy and levity in the worst and darkest of our times. I use this podcast because my life sucks so much right now. So
I agree.
So, like,
laugh or cry.
yeah. So like when fandom gets upset because Marvel got a little jokey instead of getting heavy like DC with Dark Knight, it's just like, look at your own life.
Oh no, I love it. I love it, especially when it starts to get light like that. That's always my favorite. I think it's needed. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor, all of those movies. I was like, the humor of it is just so beautifully paired with the tragedy of it all.
And as much as Supernatural gets way serious, it also doesn't take itself too seriously.
It can't. I don't think it can work if it does, because life can't just be all doom and gloom.
Right.
We love those Dean crying on the car moments, but we also need, the levity of Sam making jokes and being all slapstick funny and
right.
Dean having to work around that, or just like we
and meeting douchebag alternate realities of themselves, like
exactly
that was
like,
nice.
like calling themselves out, whether it's about their hair or their looks or whatever. Like it's needed to feel like they're relatable.
Right. And that's one of these. I was having this conversation with a nerdy friend the other day on, the different seasons, and people like their different seasons. Just like a lot of people have never gone back to The Walking Dead after season 3, which is weird to me. But that's another one of those entertainment things that I always say. It's like I love writing. I love dialogue. That's why I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. But there's two types of people that go into The Walking Dead. They're either in it for the gore and the zombie violence, or they're in it for the human survival aspect and the storyline. I'm in it for both. But yes, I'm always drawn to the human survival and how we react and think as characters. Because like you said, only thing we can control is ourselves, our personal attitude and the way we treat other people. Everything else around us is completely out of our control.
Yeah. So, to answer your question, I do write. It's a fun process. I like to write with people. I don't really write on my own unless I'm creating my own, like my course or my book or something like that. But typically when it comes to entertainment, for entertainment's sake, I like to write with people.
Yeah. No, group writing is fun. I former musician, so I've done group writing in bands, and I've done group writing for some movie scripts, and it's all different versions, and it's always different than doing anything when I'm just writing by myself. I definitely prefer creative, collaborate moments for sure. Yeah.
More brains activated is the better.
Right.
The best idea wins. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I don't need to be the idea guy, but let me help you make your idea into another level. So yeah.
And I'm typically the person who has like a really big idea, and then I pair myself with somebody who writes really good dialogue and can flesh it out.
Yeah. and that's important too, because like when it comes to dialogue, like did a movie script, there was 3 of us writing, and you could feel the character's dialogue changes according to whoever wrote that character.
Oh, right.
So I had to, because the story was originally mine, I made sure that I had final say in all dialogue, and then I'd go and tweak for certain characters, because it was just like, that just doesn't sound like the way that character would say that at all. So that's also another, how do you overcome challenges like that when in a group setting?
Well, because typically the concept is mine, so I would have final say on like, I don't think that line really works, or that's not where I'm intending the story to go. But at the same time, I truly do trust, whoever it is that I partnered up with, because I wouldn't have partnered up with them unless I thought that they were like amazing. And so it's really easy to work with them, and it's more just hanging out with my friends. Like it's just a good old time. So we never have like clashes and arguments, and arguments just are really conversations that lead to a compromise.
Right.
So I feel lucky, but ultimately I join forces with people who I feel is already in sync, and actually they aren't trying to write the concept I'm creating. Like I wrote a script with a friend of mine, and it's based in the sci-fi world, and she's like, I hate sci-fi, and I was like, perfect. because then you'll call me out on everything that makes no sense.
Right. Yeah.
You know, instead of us both
Sci-fi
being
is
in that
just
world.
it's Shakespeare in space. That's all it
Right.
is. Once you tell them that, they're usually in.
You know, exactly. So it's just like, that doesn't make any sense. And you're like, well, then let's make it make sense. Rather than me being like, oh my God, isn't it so cool when? And you're like, but have you really thought this all the way through? And I was like, no, I did not. I just thought it was cool for a second. My bad. So it's helpful to have somebody who will bounce things off of you and be like, try again.
Right. Yeah. No. And that's part of just open, honest dialogue and self-awareness, humility to be able to, you know, have those kinds of conversations.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you have anything coming up you're allowed to talk about?
No.
I've signed enough NDAs. So I understand completely.
Everybody signs NDAs.
Yeah.
So, there are cool things on the horizon. I will say that. That even I'm like, I can't wait to see this.
I got stuff I worked on 10 years ago that's never coming out. I'm not allowed to talk about.
You know, but no, there's going to be some really cool stuff coming down the pipes, and you just might see Billie make an appearance just before the show's over.
Sweet.
And
I was going to ask.
Yeah,
without prying.
That's all I can say.
Yeah, well,
you
just like
might.
Well,
see Billie
COVID messed up filming process and editing and everything. It changed.
I know, that's so wild.
Movie theaters closing is just like so insane
wild
to me. Like that's, you know.
I mean, I'm at the stage where if you told me the sky cracked open and you know, animals are falling from the sky, I'd be like, what is it, Tuesday?
Yeah,
like it just would have.
You know what? Jesus is gonna show up on his ship, and we're gonna shoot him down.
You know, it's gonna be.
That's how we are right now.
It's gonna be so incredibly real. It's gonna be so incredibly real. But,
yeah, nothing surprises me anymore. I'm waiting for the super volcano in Yellowstone to explode. I've been saying that for 5 years.
You know,
so
I won't be surprised.
Yeah,
I won't be surprised.
Nothing anymore because you know I also watch a lot of nature shows and Planet, so like I'm very aware of how the tectonic plates work, and I watch the Pacific Rim for where volcanoes are happening versus earthquakes. Like I pay attention to that stuff, because I grew up in California and I love Hawaii and I've traveled and I love our planet, so I like to be aware of what our planet does. You know what I mean?
Only one I got.
Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap this up with my favorite 3 questions, which kind of leads me in, you know, which I almost did in the middle of this because of some stuff you were saying spiritually and entertainment-wise. I almost jumped the gun because I like these questions because they tell a lot about a person. So who's your favorite hero? Like mine's Superman. He's back here on the wall.
Right now,
in several places.
I would have to say my unborn son.
You're skipping ahead. That's the 3rd question.
Oh, sorry.
The 3rd question is, who's your real life hero? Who inspires you?
You know, my unborn son. He's so chill already. I love him so much. I know this is typical of every new mom to say, and at the same time, I really do appreciate that he has made me a better person because I know that we're sharing a body, and so we're sharing energy. And I don't know if I would have had the strength to have been as grounded, as chill, as open to receiving help from the universe if I wasn't carrying a little miracle of just like, whoa, that's like a human being.
Yeah.
Just being made out of thin air.
No. Hard work. No, I've said a million times, like sometimes I feel like a little teenage girl inside, but I have always been proud to be a man because I worship women. Y'all are goddesses. What you go through just in, let alone growing a child, let alone the actual birthing and then raising children. You know, a dad changes one diaper and they're like, oh my God, you're the father of the year. It's just like,
I feel very grateful to have Dion as his dad because he's going to teach him all he knows by being all that he is. And he's just one of the greatest human beings that I've ever had the privilege of getting to have a front row seat to their life. So
Yeah.
I'm not worried
You
about.
got, and
He's in good hands.
you guys, I loved your Father's Day post. You guys are just the most beautiful couple. So
Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
I'm excited. I'm excited for you. Well, then I'm going to do these in reverse. Then we'll go to question 2. Who's your favorite villain? Because mine is like Darth Vader because he's got a crazy story arc of from childhood and supposed to be the savior, becoming one of the greatest villains in cinematic history. You know,
Oh, that's fair. That's a
yeah,
good one.
and like now he's kids' heroes. Like I was dressing up as Luke Skywalker for Halloween. Now kids, all of my nephews want to be Darth Vader.
Oh, yeah.
It's insane.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I would say my new favorite villain has to be Hela from Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, okay. She's such a great actress too. But yeah, that was a good role. Why? Why? Because your heroes are only as good as your villains are bad.
Exactly, and she was fantastic. What I love about Cate Blanchett is the fact that she is somebody who can play a million roles and dive so deeply into them that I still feel like she could show me something new. Because I walked away being like, ooh, I'd love to see her do a vampire next. That'd be great. We haven't seen her do that, you know? And I think that's so amazing when an actor inspires you to want to see them do something else.
Right.
Because we've seen her do so many different things, but I just thought that the power that she brought, the authority that she brought, just the wisdom that she brought to that character is just, I fell in love with her. I literally have gone back and I've probably watched that movie 3 times just to be like, oh my gosh, she's so amazing. I love everything that she's doing. Oh, it's like school.
Yeah.
So she's become one of my favorite villains just because she is.
Well, there's the calmness. I love a calm villain who just always in charge, never raises their voice, has a slight smile because they know something you don't know. But
yet commands so much attention, so much power without having to raise their voice and you can see where their power centers are and you can see.
Did you use any of that in Billie? Because you have a very calming but commanding presence as Billie.
I try to. I really do. I try and walk around as though I'm nowhere and everywhere at the same time. As if I'm in a void and I've just chosen to appear here.
Right.
You know, whatever realm we're in, whatever we're doing,
Doesn't matter.
On multiple planes, but this is where I'm choosing to show myself. I've always tried to have that in my mind's eye.
Right. That makes perfect sense for the character. And then now skipping to the first question, back to that. So then who's your favorite superhero? Because mine, once again, Superman, crash landing in Kansas. Like there's a version where he lands in Russia and ends up becoming makes Russia a superpower. Superman could be the greatest villain of all time, but being raised in Kansas by the Kents ends up becoming one of the greatest unbeatable superheroes of all time. I know Batman's most people's favorites because he takes a beating and keeps on, fighting the good fight, and everybody loves a hero with anger issues. But I writing for the Boy Scout is hard, but that's the other thing. He's just such a Boy Scout of a character where he could be the worst villain of all time.
Oh, absolutely.
So who's your favorite hero?
My favorite character hero would have to be Wonder Woman. And then my husband was like, did you know that there's a Nubia? There's a black Wonder Woman? And I was like, what? And then I almost died.
This is why inclusion is so important because you didn't get to see that character growing up. So you didn't know it existed.
I didn't know it existed, but I fell in love with the Wonder Woman persona and what she embodies and what she's all about. And then to know that there was Nubia. And I'm like, oh my God. So I say Wonder Woman, but in my heart, I'm saying Nubia.
Yeah, no.
Because now I know. Now I know.
Absolutely. And now there's tons of kids that get to grow up with Black Panther because of that movie that didn't even know that Black Panther's been a comic book around since the 70s. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That movie. I still go back and watch that movie. I think I've seen it 10 times. It's like church.
Yeah. I've watched it 3 times in the last 4 months.
It's like church. It's such a good feeling film. I love it. I think it's so empowering. I'm so glad we have it. It's in the canon. I'm so glad that the best. You're like,
Right.
well, that's good. That's good for business.
It is. And so
Don't
how
make
do we
more.
move forward in entertainment with the Black Lives Movement to make this all, a better reality for us? How do we manifest that?
I think we rise to our highest selves. That's how I think we really create change. Angela Davis has a really great speech where she talks about how the movement would have been different in her day if they knew to implement self-care and taking care of themselves and allowing themselves to heal as well as move the needle forward. And so that would be how I say we do it, because it's not just important that we get things done. I also believe we need to really be proud of the people we are along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I love everything about you so much.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks,
So nice to meet
Elena.
you.
Thank you for hooking
Thanks,
us
Elena.
up. Yeah.
Thanks for having me on your show. I
yes.
appreciate that.
As your podcast progress forward, and maybe once we finally get to see the finale of Supernatural, we can have you back to talk about that.
Oh, absolutely.
And get this live streaming going better, because someone is telling me you are sideways. So I don't even know how this looks. You look great on my computer.
I tried to turn it the other way.
Yeah,
I tried to turn it the other way.
Who knows what's going on? I'll get it fixed eventually. So we'll get it perfected and have you back on for sure. That's why I was using the graphic with your photo more. So people, in case people couldn't see what you look like, they can see what you look like. But go follow her on her Instagram. Check out her new meditation podcast and her Trinity steps for better wellness and self-awareness and to get your mental health in line. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for sponsoring us today, Jade Healing Co. Also a good way, some of my favorite CBD products on the market. Another good way to control your health and your mental health. People out there, don't be afraid of it. It's all good products. If you have questions,
Amen.
Hit her up or hit me up. I'm happy to talk to you about it. But Lisa, you're amazing. Thanks for being on the show, and I hope to see you at a convention somewhere down the road.
I know, when we're allowed to do those things.
Yes, once all this is done.
When we're allowed to do those things. Have a great start to your week.
You too. Happy birthing. Congratulations, Mama.
Thank you.
Bye. What a
All the best.